Hey, what's up? My name is Daniela and welcome to a new video. So I never ended filming my top books of 2020, which I wanted to do, but yeah, it didn't end up happening. But I thought that it would be fun to look at it from a bit of a different perspective, because originally I wanted to film it like really late, give it a title like Top Books of 2020, because they are still good, which they probably are, but I thought I would look at it from the perspective of, do I still think about these books and how do I feel about them now that we are almost in 2022? What? Yeah, 2021 is almost over, which is weird, but yeah, do I still think about these books that I loved in 2020? Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention that I know which books were my favorite in 2020 because I actually compiled the list sometime during the beginning of the year, and I have it in my Notion, so I can look at it and we can talk about these books that are probably still good and figure out what I think about them now. So the first book on that list is There Mighty Things by Heather Kaczynski. So the thing that I still own it speaks volumes. Like, it survives multiple rounds of decluttering and 2 rounds of moving, I think. So yeah, it's still here and I still think very fondly of it. So this is a young adult sci-fi about a bunch of teenagers who are competing to go into space. I really enjoyed the competition element, and our main character is Indian American. She's ace and she's also vegetarian, so I really appreciated all of that rap. After finishing it, I wanted to read the sequel, which is called Wine Giant Leap, immediately, but as it usually goes with me in series, I didn't continue. And also, like, it didn't come out in paperback, so that's kind of putting me off, and it's expensive, so I haven't continued. And also, like, almost nobody talks about this series, and the people that talked about it didn't love the second one as much. So yeah, I just wasn't very motivated or like peer pressured to pick it up. But yeah, I would like to finish that series and also probably reread this one sometime, because it was very fun, and yeah, I'd like to revisit that world. So this one is still definitely a hit. Also, I think that people have polarizing opinions on the cover, but I really like it. So the second book on the list is Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I am still thinking about this book because I'm currently rereading it. So this is one of the best non-fiction books I've ever read. It's a book full of techniques and advice on how to build good habits, how to break bad habits. It's written in a really easy and fun way, and I thought that a lot of the advice that was very solid. So yeah, this book also definitely deserves the place on the list, and I would highly recommend it. The third book on this list is Hotstopper by Alice Oseman. So, oh geez, what? So this is a young adult contemporary comic about 2 boys who meet and fall in love. I absolutely adored it, and yeah, I still really love it, and now I own the second one and I want to get all of the rest of the series. Definitely still one of the best books I read last year. So next, there's a book I really didn't predict to make it into my best books of 2020, because I thought that I'm just going to flip through it, but I ended up reading it from cover to cover, and it was 111 Places You Have to See in Prague. I hope it's out in English, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's this guide of lesser known places in Prague. I counted it when I read it, like how many places I visited, and like definitely the majority of them I haven't, and I've lived here for 10 years, so it's definitely very great for locals and tourists who want to see some non-traditional places. Each place had a page or 2, and there was like a story or like history, just info about it, And yeah, it was so compelling to read, so I ended up reading all of it and I loved it. Then we have Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. So this was a non-fiction written by a therapist, and it talked about her experiences as a therapist. So we got a couple of patient stories as well as her experiences with being in therapy. And I also listened to it on audio. I think she didn't narrate it, which I would have preferred if she did, but it was an amazing experience. I really loved hearing like both the patient stories and her story. Yeah, I'm an advocate for therapy. I think that everyone can benefit from it, and yeah, this book was great and I would really highly recommend it. I almost kicked off the camera of the tripod. Anyway, then we also have Getting Things Done by David Allen. So this is another non-fiction book that I still own. Yeah, I actually also listened to this on audio and later bought it. And yeah, sometime this year I also started to reread it, but I only made it to page 50. Is it possible? Yeah. I haven't reread it, but I might give it a shot sometime soon. So this is all about organizing your life, and it talks about the systems and things in general rather than like specific apps and stuff like that. This is a classic and I still think it's really good. If I should recommend like either this or Atomic Habits, I would recommend Atomic Habits, but it's also more like general about habits, whereas this goes more into the nitty-gritty of organizing your life. So both have its place. Then we have His Quiet Agent by Ada Maria Soto. It is a male romance that takes place in some like top secret agency, so we get kind of intriguing environment and a lot of things are secret, stuff like that. And rude. And we follow a main character, Arthur, who kind of gets a crush on his mysterious coworker Martin. So this is a novella. I listened to it on audio and it was really quick and fun. I really loved the romance. Also, both of the characters are A's and I really enjoyed the rap. But also, there's the thing that the love interest has a nickname, the Alien, and he's described as this like robot-like character, which like obviously wouldn't be a great A's rap, but the main character is also A's and he's like his opposite. He's like very emotional, at least like, I mean, we are in his head, so we get a lot of his emotions, and he's kind of like more friendly. In the end, for me, it felt like some characters who are A's can be robot-like and some might not, because like one doesn't have anything to do with the other. But I'm not sure if like all people are going to see it like that. Some people might view it just like they're gonna focus on the fact that he's a robot-like character. So like that's kind of feeding the stereotype that Ace people don't have emotions or whatever. So as you can see, I have some mixed feelings about it. I might be a bit hesitant to recommend it to the masses, but for me personally it deserved the spot on the list because of how much I enjoyed it and how much emotions it made me feel. Then we have The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. So this is sci-fi dystopian novella that takes place in Britain, and it's about a character taking a citizenship and shit gets weird. It's good going into it not knowing much, but also check out the content warnings because it's really hard-hitting. I didn't really expect this turn of events and the ending kind of broke me. I actually gave it 4 stars, so that also might tell you something about my reads of last year, that like 4 stars made it into the top 10. So yeah, I didn't absolutely love it. I had some complaints, I don't remember which ones. I think that like the sci-fi parts or some of the characters were a bit undeveloped. I mean, it's a novella, so there wasn't that much space. But it's definitely a very unique book that is very impactful. Next we have Well Met by John DeLuca, and this is an adult contemporary romance about a woman who accidentally ends up being a part of a Renaissance fair in a small town, and our love interest runs the Renaissance fair. and at first they don't like each other, but then like their characters in the fair like have a thing, so that's kind of a like fake dating kind of, and yeah, that leads to things. I didn't know if I'd enjoy the Renaissance fair element because like I have nothing to do with it, but it ended up being really fun and I really liked the characters and the romance was really good. Also some things in it were really emotional, so it made me feel things, like her ex was kind of shitty, and it also talked about her relationship with her sister. As you can see, I'm not holding it because I don't own it anymore. I have unhauled it and I don't want to say I regret it because like I don't need it right now and I live in a very small space right now, but I might want to own it in the future, we will see. Next we have Becoming by Michelle Obama. So I also don't own this anymore because I thought that I wasn't going to reread it in the near future or maybe ever, and I wanted the book to get to other people. I don't think I need to say much about this book. I also find it hard to talk about people's memoirs, especially if it's someone who's really well known. Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it and my grandma read it, which is like amazing. I kind of gave it to my mother to read and she didn't, but she gave it to my grandma, and it's kind of sad, but possibly it's like the only book she's ever read by someone who's black, and she really liked it, so I was really happy about that. But yeah, this book definitely still deserves the place on this list, and yeah, I would recommend it to everyone. Next we have Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callender, and I recently bought this copy and I still can't get over how beautiful it is. So this is a young adult contemporary about a trans boy called Felix Love who's never been in love, and it talks about a lot of things. It talks about identity, so about him being trans, but also how he further questions his identity in various aspects, and then there's some revenge plan and love triangle and like class issues and relationships with family members, and yeah, it's a lot of angst, but it's also absolutely amazing, and it was such an impactful book for me. It made me feel a lot of things, and I could relate to some of the things that were discussed in this book. Also, I listened to the audiobook and the audiobook is absolutely brilliant, so I would really recommend it. So this book totally definitely belongs on the list. It's one of my favorite young adult contemporaries of all time. Not that I read like an awful lot of them, but it's up there. And last thing on this list is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. So this is an adult sci-fi about our main character April May, and she's in her early 20s and she accidentally becomes internet famous. So there's the sci-fi element that some statues appeared at several places in the world and they're very mysterious, and yeah, April and her friend happened to film that, and that's how they became famous. And it's a lot about what happens when she gets famous, how she's dealing with it, how her relationships are impacted. She's also bi, so there's this rep. April is a really flawed character and I really enjoyed reading about her story. It was absolutely brilliant. I own the sequel. I haven't read it because I think I want to reread this one first. I haven't tapped anything because I'm kind of lazy about it, but I remember that there were definitely some like relatable things or quotable things, so I'm looking forward to going back and maybe tabbing things this time, because yeah, it's definitely rereadable and a book that I was hyped for, but it also like met or even exceeded my expectations. So yeah, this definitely still has a place on the list. So yeah, that's how I feel about my top books of 2020. As you could see, I still feel quite strongly about a majority of them. Some of them I don't have such strong feelings about anymore, but yeah, I really enjoyed gushing about them. Let me know in the comments if you read any of these, and do you still think about some of your favorite books of 2020? Let me know in the comments, or just leave me an emoji to let me know you are here, because that's something that makes me smile. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. In the description there are links to my social media, so you can follow me there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!